Welcome to your Daily 5 for Monday, June 21st, 2025. I don't actually intend to keep doing that silly intro voice for the date, but I have to read the date to myself a couple times off the calendar if it's not in front of me so that I have it memorized when I go to hit record. And I just happened to read it in that silly voice, and I thought, I'm just going to read it in the silly voice when I do the recording. Anyway, that's not what today's 5 is about. Today's 5, as I had talked about last Thursday, is about the fact that I have finally seen a tangible use case and use of an artificial, well, whatever they'll call an AI tool in the wild that made sense to me, that I did not have any problem with the use of in my presence, and that I actually understood the tangible benefit from. So I went for my annual physical, and this year my doctor said, hey, I'm going to be using an app on my phone that is going to record this, us talking here and transcribe it for me. And that way I don't have to be trying to look at you, listen to you, and also typing. I can focus on you. And then this thing will transcribe and summarize what the results of the visit were. And I asked the doctor a couple of questions about, how do you find you have to do a lot of editing? Is it accurate? And he said so far he hasn't had to edit anything. It's actually made him more accessible to patients. He pointed out that some physicians that are in his group are not necessarily as attentive, and his hope is that these tools will allow them to have a more human connection, which is something nice to hear when, so many physicians and medical plans are saying, oh, do telehealth. Don't come in, just do telehealth, which is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with telehealth. I think it's great for people who have mobility challenges, or for some reason it's tough for them to get to a doctor, maybe distance or transportation problems. But I don't think it's the default, because particularly with a doctor, I think there is something that being able to talk directly to the patients, being in the room, seeing how people are, functioning in a physical space is important. And so I thought, and it's all HIPAA compliant. So all this is locked behind a bunch of safeguards that they did a bunch of research on. And I thought, yeah, here it is. Finally, someplace I have seen in a real world example, someone using one of these tools in a way that makes sense from almost every it does, from every aspect. The benefit of the doctor being able to, he didn't break eye contact more than once or twice, and it was just to check some history on a couple things, just to see some trends. But other than that, he was talking to me the whole time, whereas previously he'd be talking and typing and talking, kind of going back and forth. And it was it felt like a more, personal experience, in that he was listening and looking at me when I was talking about what was going on, which fortunately nothing big, so everything seems to be fine. And the idea of this making his job easier, because he's not a typist, he is, a physician. And so typing up symptoms or typing up status updates or whatever they call it, notes, that's not something he really needs to be doing with any type of proficiency. What he should be doing, and what he is doing, I think, better with this tool, is paying attention and seeing, and how somebody's talking and engaging with them and listening to what they're saying. Because one of the things in medicine that a lot of people complain has not always been great is the idea that your doctor listens to you as opposed to just jumping to something. And I think that, at least in my experience of this is this is probably the first time I've seen somebody in the wild who has no real tech kind of connection or anything like that, using one of these tools in a way that I went, yeah, this makes sense top to bottom. This is actually a really beneficial use of an artificial intelligence tool. And that's what I don't think we see a lot of. So especially, I've complained many times about the fact that show me somebody using this in the real world where I see a benefit from it, and now I've finally seen it. So it isn't that these tools will not have a use. It's just that I think, and I talked about this in the last 5, that what we so often hear about are the more surface level and honestly least beneficial uses of technology. Creating silly videos, making, graphics that often have no personality whatsoever, or are completely and utterly silly, like the Xbox hiring graphic. Go look that one up. But this, like I said, nice to see in the real world somebody using something, and I was comfortable with it in terms of my data security because of the HIPAA compliance regulations, and it made sense why someone was using this. This wasn't a gimmick. It wasn't something that they were just using because they've heard AI is fun and neat. It was actually something that allows the person to do their job better in a way that allows for a better personal connection. If every tool was like this, then I think less people would have problems with it. So it was nice to see. Later.